more shallow, but the low point still to be just after. The halfway position where my hands are no higher than my waist, I've made more or less a half goal swing. We're getting into certain specifics now about the short backswing at least, and we're getting into the couple of options again that I want you to try, okay? This one is almost harnessing your Matt Wolf or Calvin Peete. Some people have thought of this a bit like Leadbetter's A-swing. It's just a much simpler sort of version of it, and this swing's been around for ages. It's just Leadbetter's, obviously David Leadbetter, he's got a huge name. But you know, people have been sort of teaching and utilizing this swing type for quite a long time, well before Leadbetter. So I will give him some credit because he brought it back to light, but I've used this on the students for years, and actually I've used this swing when I haven't played much, or even when I didn't pick up a club for like 2-3 years because I hated the game. This was one of the ways that I got back into it, which is quite, you might like to know. But what we're talking about is everything else is the same that we've discussed earlier, okay? So everything else is the same. But what we want is a steeper shaft going back. Why? Because that's going to enable us to add a little bit of flow, and this tipping of the club, we touched on it earlier, but this tipping of the club is going to create a shallower angle of attack, because we do not want a steep downswing here, still to be just after. So if you've got the setup right, or we have more weight on the lead side, the feeling we're going to have is the butt of the club is going to point towards the heel, the thigh rather, as we take the club away. But the checkpoint is your shaft, you're not going to probably quite get there. You might realistically get about here, even if you try and get to here, okay? But we're trying to almost match our spine angle with the shaft, because about from there, as we transition back down, the shaft is going to tip over and get into the slot where we can just sort of fire the hands, all right? Now remember, it's very key to have suppleness in the wrist, very, very key. I will keep saying it because it is crucial, all right? But we make our start of our swing back. Our checkpoint is the butt of the club is pointing towards the thigh, and notice just by the halfway position where my hands are no higher than my waist, I've made more or less a half goal swing. My body is sort of turned, my hips are turned, and all I need to do now from here is transition back, okay, as like my energy goes back, which we're going to talk about, and I am making a full enough goal swing. And this just feels a bit more repeatable. For people that, you know, if you struggle with pulling the arms in a little bit, or turning too much, or thinking you've got to make a bigger turn, to feel like that club is staying outside of the hands constantly here, okay? We don't want the elbow too cramped. We still want that width that we talked about, but the hands are a little bit more this way. There, you're going to almost feel a bit like Jim Furyk perhaps. But by doing that, you're going to give yourself this time and sort of checkpoint that you can rely on. But just by tiny little swings like that with suppleness, okay? I think my setup's a bit skew-if, but by checkpoints like that, okay, to here, even though I was trying to accentuate the feeling, I didn't quite get as extreme as that. And that's what you have to remember. Feels are not exactly reality, all right? It's feel versus real. So to begin with, you might want to test this out and see what kind of strikes you get. And you might like that delayed sort of feel of shallowing. You might feel a bit like Garcia or Furyk, as I said. But that movement gives you the time. Because if you have a tendency to be this way, where we take it on the inside and over the top, we're reversing that pattern. But it's a very short swing. The arms, the hands are only really moving a couple of feet. And that's it. We combine that with the wind-up, we are going to be in a nice, comfortable position to hit the ball, all right? So start small, hit a few little diddy shots to begin with, okay? Nothing exaggerated, nothing too hard, but just try and feel that movement there and then back. Don't worry about the downswing too much for now, but notice the checkpoint and swing through, okay? It might feel a bit strange to begin with, but it might be the key that you're looking for with every club in the back.